two. Okay, good.
Yes, definitely.
So can you see the, oh wait, did I share screen? Can you
Not
see the
yet.
PowerPoint? Okay. Right. So first I have to share screen. Then now can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Then I will um, go and go.
Are you able to make it full screen? Oh, yeah, perfect.
All right. So I created a model that I call the parenting processes model that has
Martha,
three. Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you. There's a
that's
little
okay.
black box over the top there. Yeah.
So can I, yeah,
Are you
do it
able to move that?
down here?
Mm-hmm.
Is that better?
Oh, yes, that's better.
Okay. And so I think of parenting in three different categories. One is what is the emotional relationship that we have with our kids. That includes what we call secure attachment. And then how do we help our children explore the world and learn about the things they need to learn and the skills they need to develop? And how do we guide our children towards living interdependently? And what I mean by that is living with others for mutual benefit. So, we have to live in the world with our family, with our classrooms in schools, in our communities. And how do we do that? So it's not just, I want my kid to behave well, but I want my kid to learn how to have relationships that nurture and and feel good to everyone involved. So we're going to talk about each one of these, and I'll show a little bit of video to illustrate. And the first one is developing the emotional relationship. And what do we do? We need to first spend time together, right? So often our lives are so busy and we don't always, take the opportunity to eat together or to play together. Everyone goes off on their own screens or their own activities, but we need to find opportunities to enjoy spending time together and to be sensitive and responsive to our children. Little babies will kind of brighten and signal that they have something they want to share. They want to make a connection. And if we don't see that, we miss these opportunities to lean in and connect and get a sense of, what the child is thinking and feeling and experiencing in that moment. And the child might go, "Oh, look." And you look, what is the child pointing to? And you say, "Ah, you see the bird. You see it. What is, oh, it flew away. Bye bye, bird." So you spend and take these opportunities to connect in very small ways and also in bigger ways. Your child comes home from preschool and you notice, something is off, and you say, "Hey, it's so good to see you. How was your day at school today?" Um, and and you find out, what's happening. Um, the I'll just I had another thought to share, but I think I'll keep moving. And the third component of the emotional relationship is what we call reflective function. By that we mean we don't just focus on the surface behavior. We think and feel into what's underneath. What are the thoughts, the feelings, the intentions that a child might have that may not be completely obvious by their behavior? And we hold those in our mind and in our heart and respond. accordingly. And it reminds me of a video I saw of um, a mom and a 1 year old child, and they were going through a procedure to assess secure attachment. And so they actually asked the mom to leave the room. And so she started to leave the room, and the little 1 year old was almost frantic to get her to stop, and he held on to her skirt and tried to shut the door. And they talked with her afterwards, and they said, how was that for you? And she said, oh my gosh, when, you told me I needed to leave. And when I tried to leave, he wouldn't let me. And, it was like kind of drove me nuts. And so then they showed her the video and she watched. And all of a sudden she said, oh, oh, I think he was scared that I was leaving. And it hadn't occurred to her. And, you might think, oh my God, that sounds so obvious. But we often get reactive, and we look at the behavior that we might not like in the moment. Our child gets angry, or our child, hits somebody else. And we don't, it's like, stop that. And we don't stop ourselves to reflect on, wow, what was that about? What might that have been, what happening inside the child um, to make that response? And often even ourselves, why did I do that? What was going on with me? And we might focus on the other person. Oh, the other person did this and that and this and that. But it's much harder actually to come back to ourselves and reflect on our own intentions and thoughts and feelings. Like, what was I feeling at the time? Oh, I was really hurt that, he didn't or she didn't do something. And then I lashed out, or then I got cold and unresponsive. And then, if we could deal with the hurt in the moment rather than the reaction, we probably get a lot further along, to understand ourselves and reconnect and repair whatever happened with whomever was in that situation. So those are the kinds of things that help the parent and the child develop this secure attachment and a full emotional relationship. And I want to be able to share a video with you to illustrate this. I'm going to stop share. And then I'm going to share screen again. And this is a video. Melissa, can you see
Yes.
it? Okay. This is a video of a mom and her 4-month-old. And I just want to just illustrate the many things that they are doing to have enjoyable time together, the sensitivity and responsiveness that is so beautifully illustrated here, and what happens when there is a disruption. Because in all interactions, it does not go smoothly. We miss each other, we're imperfect, we don't notice, there's a misunderstanding, there's some sort of rupture or disruption, and then we need to repair it. And that's true with our kids, that's true with our partners, that's true with our friends. It's a hugely important part of relating and developing relationships. So let me just play a few moments of this and watch the two of them interact. And then at one point, I ask Elizabeth to turn away to create a disruption. And then just notice what happens to this little guy, Daniel, when he no longer has his mom's attention and responsiveness. playing with the ball, and she joins him by playing with a set of plastic keys. And when I actually showed this video to Elizabeth, she was absolutely convinced that Daniel's enjoyment came from the toys. And I had to play it over and over for her to see he likes the toys, he gets into the toys, but it is when they look at each other that he smiles. And at one point, she finally said, "Oh, he loves me." And it was kind of a revelation. So she gives him the keys. He really likes them. And she joins him by saying, "You're going to open the house? Are you going to open the house?" And so she adds language in that and intention in some ways, keys are for opening the house. And so they have this just beautiful interaction together. And she joins him by picking up another set of keys, a bigger one, and interacts in a different way, not through language, but through activity. And they have this back.
So here's the part where you look away, and we'll see how he does.
So here, Daniel is not a verbal kid. He's much more bodily focused. So he is shaking that ball more and more vigorously, as if to say, "What happened? Where did you go? Come back." And but he doesn't call out. So she doesn't realize, perhaps that he is, having some distress. And then, as you see, he brings the ball and his hand to his mouth, which is a way of self-soothing that children at this age use. Well, probably children at many ages use, and because this is a tough time. I don't do this anymore. I did this in the beginning when we were doing some research, but I decided when I film babies and their parents, we don't need to put them through this. But just notice what happens. So he keeps trying. She's not coming back. And then you can see his distress again. And compare the brightness of his face with his look here. Look, his face is taking on a completely different look to it. And his body collapses in right there, which is a sign of distress. His legs are moving. He's not comfortable. He's not happy. And this is a very good sign for the relationship, because it tells us that this child is used to having a situation where his mom, maybe they're not interacting in the moment, something has happened, there's a disruption, but there's a pretty immediate repair. And that's what the child expects. And that's a good thing. Relationships are important. He wants his mom's attention. She usually gives it to him. At 4 months, he's not able to wait a long time, as he will be as he, gets to be 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, when mom can say, "Wait, I'll be there in just a minute." But can't do that at this age. So he's distressed. And then I say, you can turn back and then notice what it takes to repair and then what happens as a result. Elizabeth doesn't get Daniel's attention immediately. It's as if he's saying, hey, I'm mad at you. But she leans in. She kind of instinctively knows how to re-engage him with one of the toys. She leans in, she kisses his feet, and he's back. They're back to their beautiful, responsive interaction. But he is, as I said before, he's a very bodily based little guy. And so he is so much more vigorous in using those toys and moving because he is dispelling the stress, the physiological stress of what just happened. And sometimes you see that in kids, they have to burn off some of their stress, some of their leftover feelings in physical activity. And that's a really important coping strategy for a lot of kids. So that illustrates the ways in which you connect with your child and repair when there are disruptions. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. So I'm going to share a screen to get back to that. And when, Melissa, can you see the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay. When you have this wonderful emotional relationship, there's a sense of safety, right? The child knows you will be there if they are upset, if they're scared, if they are overwhelmed. They will come to you and you will see it and you will help them. You will soothe them, you will comfort them, you will help whatever it is that's happening. And that is what we call a secure attachment. Also, through that emotional relationship, the child begins to know themselves by what they see reflected in you. So when Daniel smiles and Elizabeth smiles back, or Elizabeth smiles and Daniel smiles back, the child sees, oh, that's called happiness. I'm feeling that. I can see that on my mom's face. And my mom knows me and understands me. When I express my distress, she can tell and she'll come and she'll help me. And the child begins to know others too. And the child feels a sense of, when something goes wrong, I can draw my mom to me. And I have a sense of competence and a sense of worth in that. So when we have this secure attachment and this emotional safety, the child can begin to move away from the parent to explore the world. And that's the wonderful kind of paradox. The close relationship allows for distance and independence. And the child begins to move outward and see what's in the world, what fascinating and challenging things there are. But when it gets to be too much, the child knows that there's a safe haven to return to for safety and comfort. And just, think about, how does your child explore and how do they feel about that? Some kids are more tentative. Some kids are like, wow, let me at it. And what makes them overwhelmed? What makes it hard? What challenges bring them back to you? And what do they need, in that? So let's talk about that second component of parenting, where we promote the exploration and learning of our children. And what do we need to do? The first thing is to accept who and where our child is. And sometimes that's hard because we have a vision of what we want our child to be. And the kid that we have imagined is not necessarily the kid who we have. And we can miss a lot of the wonderful things about our kid when we are very wishing for something else. So it can be challenging, but to see, who do we have? What are his interests or her interests, and what does she naturally are interested in and good at, and um, you know, uh, challenged by, and are we okay with that? Secondly, we want to provide a safe and stimulating environment. Kids do better with three-dimensional toys where they can explore and put things together. And um, I don't, I think it's very different if they're interacting with the screen. Um, so I want us to think about what kind of things are most stimulating and helpful for children to learn from. And I think we have to try to give them that three-dimensional environment where they can learn about their bodies and how things work and how to navigate, and not spend time on a screen, even though they seem to love it. And we want to add language and literacy materials, books, different kinds of of print. We might look in the subway to see what's around us and what we could read on the wall as we're riding. So we want to do that. We want to scaffold the activities that our kids are engaging in and see when do they need help and help just enough, and when do we need to just leave them alone and allow them to, do their own thing and be challenged by it, and sometimes have something that's frustrating, but they can overcome the frustration. And so I want to show another video because I think it illustrates this particular thing beautifully. This is Shirley, and there's no sound on this video, so don't worry about that. And we'll, okay. And so as you watch Shirley struggling with this toy, pay attention to her, but first also pay attention to yourself. What are the feelings that get generated as you watch her? And just, be curious about that. And just notice when is there scaffolding? When is there helping just enough? This was a Bright Beginnings group many years ago. So there's some help, someone is moving. Boy, Shirley tries to bring the ball closer to her, but there's some help, and then some more help. And they take the mitten off so she can use both hands. She almost gets it. And she gets it. Okay. So what can you put in the chat what you were feeling as you watched Shirley? Oh, okay. One of my videos is okay. Okay. So urge to help, yes. Worried, she was stressed. I was too. Proud of her for trying. Frustrated. I missed a couple. Melissa, were there some that I missed? Determination. Absolutely. Shirley was so determined.
One person said felt comfortable with it.
Okay, good. Thanks. So when I've showed this video in to different groups, sometimes it's parents, sometimes it's folks that I'm training to work with families. It is often divided. Half the group is going, "Oh, I was so feeling for her. I didn't want her to be upset, and it was almost, painful." And the other half of the group was like, "Oh man, I felt like Shirley was awesome, and she was going at it, and I wanted her to just, stop helping her because she can do it." And that is a very natural um, uh, kind of way we think about parenting. Sometimes we feel for our children, and we are, tender-hearted, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, I hope he's okay. I don't want him to suffer, and I want him to, um, suffer needlessly." And sometimes we're like, no, he needs to get out there and, learn how to take take a defeat or a challenge. And it's both. And so I think someone said, Shirley was okay. So we have to pay attention what's happening with the child. Is he okay? Can he tolerate this? At what point does it become too much and we help more? Um, but if we're too worried about our child's feelings in the moment, we may rob them of the opportunity to learn how to cope with, difficulties. So to really know ourselves, what is our tendency, and how do we use that to the child's advantage, or have to kind of stop ourselves from helping too much or not helping enough. All right, so let me again go back to share screen to the PowerPoint. So we have to tolerate our own tension in the struggle. And if we can do that, our kids learn skills, they feel confident to learn, they can develop the capacities to tolerate frustration, delay gratification, persistence, which is mentioned by a couple of people, and have that sense of like, I can deal with things, and that self-worth that comes from. And finally, the last component of parenting I'd like to talk about is guiding towards interdependence. And the first thing we need to do is establish the expectations for what we want our children to do and encourage the positive behavior. And if we do this, it takes care of, I think, 75, 85, 95% of kids' behavior. Right? We can proactively develop routines that help children know what to do in the morning, what to do in the evening, what to do at mealtime. If we teach them, this is how you ride a subway, or this is how you ride the bus. We teach them ahead of time. We don't wait until they're swinging on the pole um, to stop them. We preview, tomorrow I'm going to take you to school, and mom is going to pick you up. Or we think ahead about what might be important to prepare for, and we model. So then when we deal with misbehavior, we redirect. We say, you can't do this, but you can do this. So we don't just say, stop, don't do that. We say, you can't do this, but you can do that. And we set limits and we use consequences. There was a group when little Daniel, who you saw a few minutes ago, I was running a Bright Beginnings group with parents and their babies, and he kept crawling over to in those days we used tripods and a video camera, and he tried to pull himself up. And the first session, I would take him, he was about 7 months old, I think, at the time. And I'd put him in the middle of the group and I'd say, you can't do that, but here's something else you can do. And I gave him a toy. And I think he went over to the tripod about 7 times that time. No, Daniel, you can't do that, but you can do this. Kept redirecting. The second session, he probably went over about 4 times. The third session, maybe once or twice. And by the fourth session, he knew that was not going to fly and he stopped. But it took, what, like 15 times? And we sometimes don't have the confidence that if we are consistent and if we make the limit clear and if we redirect to what the child can do instead of what the child can't do, we will persevere and the child will learn. But sometimes we give up after 3 times. Well, he just doesn't listen. Or it's just, I have to not have the tripod there with the camera because every time he's going to, try to pull up on it. And kids will learn, but it may take 20 tries. It may take 2 months, but it may take a while. But we want to not give up and to know that we will help our child learn whatever it is they need to learn, and it will work. And finally, we want to, actually, there are 2 more. We want to use collaborative problem solving. We don't want to always give our child the solution. I remember when my son was 4 and his best friend Alina were playing, and they had a fight about what to do. And they seemed to be getting, further and further away from solving the problem. So I sat down with them. I said, so, what's the trouble? And Alina said, David wants to do this. And David said, Alina wants to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you both wanted to play with this toy. I wonder what you guys can do. Do you got any ideas? And Alina says, well, I think blah, 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 whatever it was. And I said to David, well, what do you think, David? And he says, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. Okay, well, Alina, would you want to do what David wants to do? No, So we sat there for a good 15 minutes, back and forth, until they finally, realized they weren't going to be able to get their way until they could have some compromise and come up with something that both of them could live with. And to help our kids, do that kind of thinking. What do I really want? What am I willing to give up? What am I willing to do? And how can they be part of the problem solving process? And finally, we want to engage in what I call reflective dialogues. There was a friend of mine whose daughter broke her arm. She had to tell the story of breaking her arm a number of times to try to make sense out of it, to realize she's okay, to kind of piece it together. And so sometimes we have to, wow, can we talk about what happened today? It may not be as terrible as breaking an arm, but when you got so frustrated, or oh my goodness, we had such a good day. What was your favorite part? Why was it your favorite part? What did you, what really was best about that? And to help kids learn about themselves. What do they like? What do they feel? Why do they feel that way? They make sense out of something. And they understand someone else's point of view. So we don't have to do it in the moment, because often our bodies are too activated to really be thoughtful. But, at some later point, can we talk about that? I had some thoughts. I wanted to hear what you think about that. And, kids as young as 2, 3, 4, 5, they can begin to do this in small bits, and that to help them reflect and process their experience of the day. And what happens when we do this? We can overcome our natural egocentricity. We're egocentric when we're born. Everything revolves around us. But a little at a time, we open our children up to other people and what they need. And can we work together so that everybody can get something of what they need? I used to think that empathy was learned by being empathized with. That's true. In order for our children to learn empathy, we need to feel empathy for them. But these limits and this kind of helping them see that if their behavior impinges on somebody else, that is not the way we treat other people. That is also important for empathy. Um, as I said, all of this helps them feel and process emotion. And then they also develop a moral compass. So I could show another video, which is a really interesting guidance video, but I also want to leave some time. We have about 10 minutes for questions. Are there any questions in the Q&A, Melissa, that we should go back to?
There's just one question, so maybe we can have time for the question and the video.
Okay.
So the question is, what behaviors will a baby start to show if the secure attachment is developing normally, and around what age will babies start to show them?
Stranger anxiety is a kind of harbinger of secured attachment that, you begin to realize, wait, this is my person. This is the one who I need to help me. And about 8 months, 9 months old, they don't want to go to other people. And sometimes it can be embarrassing when they get, grandma, get away from me. But to know that they do that because you are their person. And it might be, you or your partner, but the few people in that child's life, they become the primary people. And then as they allow those people to be there, and they will start to venture out, but they will look back. I remember my son right before his first birthday, we were in the playground, and he crawls away and he looks back and grins like, is this okay? Is this okay? And you nod because it's okay. And then he crawled a little further and he looks back, and he crawled a little further and looked back. So you're there, you're noticing, and they are moving out, but checking back to see, is this okay? If they're not moving out, you might want to encourage them, some new experiences, you're in a new restaurant and it's like very noisy. But little by little, maybe the child can sit in a high chair and be okay. But at first, maybe it's a little too much. So does that answer the question?
I would say so, yeah.
All right. Other questions?
I think that's the only one right. Oh, wait, one more.
Okay.
When a child is acting out or whining, how do you know when he or she needs a limit to be reinforced versus when their behavior is an expression of an unmet emotional need?
Yeah. So that's such a great question, because, the child may be exhausted because there was a lot of activities that day and he's reached his limit to here. And you can't expect, the kid to kind of navigate that. So sometimes you have to say, oh my goodness, you seem so tired right now. Let's take a moment and just sit together. Or I feel like the kid may be whining to do something. You might say, oh, I'm so sorry, but we can't do that. But would you like to just sit down with me and we'll have a cookie and a milk and some milk right now? Or, you know what, let's go upstairs and read a book together. But sometimes, just because he's tired and overwhelmed, and doesn't mean he gets to do whatever he was whining about. And you can say, I'm so sorry, we don't do that. Kids can sense exquisitely your state if you're clear, let's say the kid is whining for something, whatever it is, and it's not appropriate, you're not going to give that to him. But you're waffling because you're in your mind, you're thinking, well, he's really tired. He's had a tough day. Maybe I could do it. And the child can sense that in a heartbeat, and they will pour it on. Oh, yeah. And they'll whine even more. So first and foremost, you have to be clear. Are you going to hold fast? No, he can't play video games right now, or no, he can't have a snack right now. Can you hold fast? And why? Because you're helping him learn how to delay gratification. You're helping him learn how to tolerate frustration, whatever it is. If you can hold fast and not kind of waffle, then you will help your child stop the whining. But if he senses that this is going to get him he's going to pour it on and pour it on and pour it on. So it starts with you and your clarity about what you know is the right thing to do in that moment, and then follow through with it.
Oh, so challenging, but so helpful, everything that you're sharing, exactly as you said, to have those values in mind for those tough moments, to know how you want to react. We do have 2 more questions, so I think we may not have time for the video. I think people would rather hear from you.
Absolutely.
So the next one is, can you talk more about helping them resolve conflicts with each other?
Yeah, it depends on how old they are. Sometimes, it's a tricky thing to know when you need to come in. Like I was thinking earlier today about a situation where, one child is splashing the other child in a bath. They're taking a bath together. That is on the one child. And, you give a warning and you say, one more time, you're out of the bath. And one more time, he's out of the bath. That's it. But if they're both doing it, and sometimes it's hard to tell, then, sometimes if it's an issue of safety, like you're in the bathtub, you don't mess around with that. You say one more time, and you both will need to come out of the bath and make it happen. But if it's a situation where you can allow them to feel frustration and it's not a dangerous kind of thing, they may be hitting each other, but they're not hurting each other. Then help say, you know what, you guys are having a tough time, so I think I'm going to try to help you figure out what to do. And you may need to take them to a different place or make some sort of we're going to do this separate thing. And then say, tell me what's going on, and see if you can, get from each of them what is the problem. Don't come in assuming you know what the problem is, or saying, you guys need to da, 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 da. No, it's tell me what's going on, as if you're coming to it fresh. Listen to each one, and then let them know it's like, wow, you guys have a problem here. Wow, what are we going to do about that? How can, let's see if we can figure something out together. Got any ideas? So you're really giving them the opportunity and the responsibility to think this through, because you're not going to allow them to go forward until they've figured this out. And sometimes what will happen is, they're losing time playing by talking. So at some point they may just say, oh, fine, we'll share it. And, we just want to get back to playing. And that will work in your favor, because they'd rather be playing than talking. Sometimes they want your attention. So in that moment, they got your attention, but you're not adjudicating and saying you're punished or you're not, but you are giving them really golden punishment, attention, wonderful attention. attention to help them think things through and come up with, solutions. So that those would be some of the strategies that I would use.
Great.
All right.
We're just about out of time. I want to thank you so much for sharing your expertise and understanding, Martha.
Mm,
Obviously, parenting is a very hard job, and you've given us a lot of tips and also understanding of those challenges, which is very appreciated.
thank you. Let me give you one quote from John Bowlby, who is the developer of secure attachment. His parenting formula was always be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. Whenever possible, follow the child's need or necessary, take charge. I'll leave you with that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much,
You're
Martha.
so welcome. You're so
And
welcome.
thank you to everyone who participated for sharing your thoughts as well and for joining us. And have a great rest of your day.
Have a great rest of the day. Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.